right, welcome to today's Video Guys News Day Tuesday. You give us 20 to 30 minutes, we're going to teach you about the technology we sell, the products we sell, the markets we sell into, and how that video technology is being used. And today we're really excited because Frank at Matrox, I know forever, going back to the days of capture cards for Adobe Premiere. But what we're really excited about now is the Monarch family of encoders, recorders, and streamers. But we're not going to talk about the products. Well, we are, of course. But we're really going to talk about today with Frank, our special guest, is we're going to talk about the verticals that these products are being used in, because you're finding that they're being used especially in worship, in education, in government, and in corporate video. So we're going to attack it from that point of view. But before we do that, I want to talk about the products. Can we cut to the picture of the products right here? Because I just want to be able to show, you know, kind of the size of what they are and how they look. Do we have a camera ready? Yeah, here we go. So these are the units. They're really small. This is the original Monarch. It's a $9.99 unit that's just HDMI in and out. We've got the HDX over here, which is both SDI and HDMI with dual inputs, dual encoding, dual streaming. And then we have the LCS, which is really developed for the lecture market. It's SDI and HDMI, but what's really nice is you can control the field of interest of each of the inputs so that you can put, say, a PowerPoint being 16:9 next to a person who's a little bit more crunched so you don't waste all your video space with them. You know, we have a really nice setup here, but we're using virtual sets, the new Tech TriCaster, much more complicated. I have two guys running the show. One of the advantages of a Monarch is the person, the presenter, the preacher, the teacher, the mayor can run the whole show. You just set it and forget it once you set up the first time. So Frank, what I'd like you to talk about a little bit is just the four markets we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, sure. So like Gary said, when we attacked this, we really didn't have, with the exception of the LCS, we really didn't have just one market that we wanted to go after. What we realized is that streaming was and is a very big part of how people communicate. So we really wanted to go after the house of worship for the market, being able to extend the congregation and the reach. For corporate communications, we did a good push there with certain partners, getting into the Fortune 500 companies as well. And going into government, you know, town hall meetings, having the community really have an easy way to get their citizens involved and being really transparent was what we were after. But you need to basically design and engineer a product that's easy to use for everybody, because like Gary said, it could be the pastor, it could be the mayor, it could be, you know, that one volunteer that was different from the week before. So the unit itself has to be an appliance, and this is one of the philosophies that we took, was that dedicated appliance that was easy to use could only be the way that can attack all these verticals.
Cool. So Frank, before we go into the verticals, let's run down very quickly what each of the products does, starting with the original Monarch.
So the Monarch HD really was put out there so that we can actually have a professional video device taking in HDMI signals either directly from a camera or a switcher. Switchers, a good pairing would be a Roland's, D1 HD, basically allowing you to come in with 4 inputs, have the mix of it go directly to the Monarch HD, and now you can stream to any social media platform that you want, either YouTube, Facebook, or your own website. So this was really there to make it easy. And one of the first pickups we saw in schools was, you know, convocations, sporting events that maybe the school had a lower budget. This dedicated appliance, you know, doesn't need anything other than power and the video source, and off you go. So very simple. And as you can see with the picture, they had even on-button control, so you just press a button off.
And now the next version of the Monarch HDX actually came from your customer request. People are like, this Monarch thing's great. I need a broadcast level unit with SDI that's more robust. So talk a little about the HDX.
Yeah, that was a good segue, because, you know, we grew that into the HDX, adding broadcast quality features like a frame synchronizer on the input. Why did we do that? Customers were saying, you know, I don't necessarily always come from a very stable signal. So in broadcast, the signal could be very dirty. So instead of spending $2,000 on a frame sync before it comes into the encoder, we put that technology right in the box. We put stuff like power bypass. So just in case the power goes off on the unit, you don't lose the signal at the box. We basically let it go right through. So these things were very key to building the HDX. And like Gary said, adding SDI was just the kicker, because that now brings you into higher level, higher quality workflows where SDI sources are present.
Yeah, Frank, I want to introduce you, interrupt you for a second, because the thing you mentioned that's so important that I think we really have to talk about is that frame sync that you put inside of the HDX really separates it. And there's a lot of people who have what I call a dirty signal. It's not always clean as it should be. And that can really screw up your encoding. When you're going to Facebook or YouTube especially, you'll lose your whole show sometimes. So just that little extra circuitry when you're a broadcaster, you're a professional, is going to really give you a lot of security in that your show's going to go off without a hitch. And that's real important.
And just to add to that, Gary, that points to the philosophy that we took on the design of the HDX, which was, that was a piece of redundant technology that we put there for failsafe. But we also put another encoder. So just in case you want to send your primary stream to YouTube, we actually have another encoder under the box just in case you could continue sending to another platform or a second channel on YouTube, just in case something is wrong with the primary server. So all of these little design choices we made really bumped up the HDX to a professional and broadcast quality product.
Yeah, now let's talk about the next evolution of the product, which really, once again, happened from feedback from customers, in this case universities, who said, we want to do a lecture type streaming, but one of the big problems with lecture type streaming was, well, I can make the professor look good, or I can make his PowerPoint look good, but how do I get both to look good and both stream at the same time? And you guys nailed that with the LCS.
Exactly. With the LCS now, like Gary said, we have the ability to bring in two sources, whether they be SDI and HDMI or two HDMI sources. Because as with the Monarch HD, it was just HDMI. HDX, it was either SDI or HDMI. And now with the LCS, we allow you to mix between, or actually put together, the professor, room camera, and the presentation material. But more than just that, we realize that we are a piece of hardware that should be invisible. So being able to schedule the operation of the Monarch LCS and working with VMS partners really helped us provide us a go-to solution for the classroom. Now that unit could sit either in the podium, never be touched by anyone. Professor walks in 9 o'clock, knows he has to be there, start teaching, because that unit is now integrated with your VMS and goes and publishes the information.
And that's one of the things I got to stress on the LCS product is that the professor who's the talent can set this thing up and operate his classroom, but even more so, as we'll get into later, you can have centralized control of the LCS, so you'll just start the system up 5 minutes before the class starts and shut it down 5 minutes afterwards, and the whole time he's there, he picks his preset that he wants, and you're streaming live and you're encoding and you're getting both the content of his presentation, like his PowerPoints that we use, and the professor himself also. And I understand there's even with certain CDNs, providers, the student can actually pick which view he would want to watch, and that's very cool.
Absolutely.
Next, I want to talk about a product that's about to start shipping, the Monarch Edge. This is a brand new product that actually Matrox has been shipping for over a year to OEM customers to design into systems that they've now turned it into a product that can be done to be sold to end users. Now, really, it's intended for integrators to integrate into bigger solutions. So talk about a little bit about where you see that product going and how it's going to evolve.
So we're really excited about the Monarch Edge. It's actually a product that encompasses and it houses Matrox's own ASIC. This is our own technology, and that's why when we start learning about what it could do, you'll realize where the horsepower comes from. Because Matrox has been forever a hardware manufacturer, yes, but some people don't know just how involved we are in building our own horsepower, the ASIC. So encoding multiple sources to multiple destinations, you need really a strong engine to do that. So imagine having 4 different video sources each one going to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, you name it. So we have that under the hood. So webcasting is one of them. Multi-destination webcasting is one of the workflows. The other workflow that this unit is geared for is remote production. And this is going to revolutionize how content is going to be created, because we're bringing the price point to remote production to the point where people don't have to worry about is that a sport that I have to cover? You know, if your school is covering badminton, but, you know, and there's people that want to cover it, but the production cost is too high, use this.
So Frank, what is going to be the MSRP of the 10-bit version of the Edge?
Good question. So we have two products, two SKUs. 10-bit, 422 10-bit is at $10,000 US, and the 420 8-bit version is at $7,500 US.
Now,
and this, again, it's a four-channel encoder, or one 4K channel encoder, and capable of doing, like I said, multi-destination webcasting or remote production.
and comparable products out there are $25,000, or they're a dedicated like server that someone's got running that has to be maintained and updated and stuff like that. So very cool. I want to jump into the heart of what today's webinar is, and that's we're going to talk about verticals. So the first vertical we want to talk about is solutions for education, and you guys have really done a great job. And you've had, I'm pulling up the banner of all these different schools where you've had success, because I can't get over how many places are using the Monarch family of solutions already. I just want to compliment you on a great job with that. And let's jump into a great user story, Stetson University.
Yeah, so the background here is Stetson is the longest serving business school in Florida. In fact, you know, I love this case study because it really highlights a workflow which is called experiential learning. We see this a lot in business schools where people are given problems to solve, you know, put a group of students together in a scenario where they're being filmed, but they're given a role. You're the CEO, you're the COO, you're the CFO, and solve this problem.
So they're role playing.
Role playing, and we see this in law schools for mock courts, and it's a tool that really, being able to record what's going on is key. And again, in an easy way so that they can actually then publish it and view it, like you were saying, the way they want and control what they want to look at. This is fundamental. What Stetson needed to do, because they needed, you were talking about scale, they needed to house more than one classroom. You know, they needed a low-cost unit that was very easy to use, and the ability to schedule the record was fundamental. So what they did was they put together the Monarch LCS and the VMS. In this case was Ensemble Video. Ensemble Video is one of those partners that we went out and realized without a video management system, they're really to be thought of as like the YouTube of schools.
So I'm going to call a timeout. VMS means Video Management System. We're going to refer to that several times during today's show, but that is a third-party software that will control, archive, not just control the recording and the playback, but actually let you control when you play stuff back, how you archive it, how you organize it, depending on what they have. But it's a very important thing for rolling this out on a more than a single or couple of classroom level.
Exactly. So, you know, how it works is that, you know, it could be scheduled like Stetson. Some of the classrooms, Stetson decided, you know, we don't want to touch this thing. We're setting it up in a picture-in-picture or side-by-side, which the LCS allows you to do, and let it go when the class starts. Others really wanted to do it ad hoc. And the beauty about Ensemble and the LCS, it really fits the workflow that you want. So if you want ad hoc, just walk into a classroom knowing that it's equipped with the LCS, either on your control surface like Crestron, just press a button because we have an API that integrates with that, or just directly on the box. But normally it's the control surfaces that people like because it's also there to control the lighting, the screen, and so on.
So Frank, behind me is a parade of banners of a lot of universities from all over the country. What I want you to talk about is some of these are maybe 5 or 10, but some of these places have goals to get to 50, 100, or 200 or more Monarchs working together through one of those VMS systems.
Absolutely, because and the VMS really is fundamental because you can picture it. If you only have one classroom that's recording 8 hours a day, yes, it's a lot of material. But imagine scaling up. And this is one of the things that we quickly saw with the LCS is that the schools not only want to scale up, they always start with maybe 20 to 30 classrooms on a semester, and then because the integration within the university takes some time, they either do it in the summer or during the winter break. Their goal is really to get there as many classrooms that are video equipped. And what we've normally seen is that you're getting easily into the hundreds. And one of the things that we also saw was, you know, once you get to the point where you are scaling, you have multiple LCSs all over your campus, you need a very central way to monitor what's going on. And we added the the Monarch Radar application, which is a web-based application that basically just runs on your network. It gives you a very good eagle-eye view of what's going on, what Monarchs are on, which are off. There's a little preview to show you the video in the classroom. So it really points to the scaling of the installations of the LCS. Again, with Stetson, you know, they started off with a dozen. They just picked up another dozen LCSs because they're moving into a larger footprint. All this because lecture capture is not only a gimmick, it's actually very useful, not only for the student, but also to give feedback to the staff. You know, the staff reviews with analytics how many students reviewed a specific part of the lecture and why.
Right.
Maybe they need to refresh.
And now, Frank, I hate to cut you short, but we got a lot of other verticals we got to handle.
Yes.
Next, we're going to talk about government, and we've got this thing deployed in a bunch of government agencies, military, courts, all kinds of stuff like that. And one of the examples you want to give is how Carmel by the Sea, which I think is Clint Eastwood's old hunting ground, is using the Matrox Monarch HDX to webcast their council meetings.
You know, this is a perfect story because I just love the fact that, you know, it points to accessibility and affordability. You know, this is a very, very small town. There's about 4,500 people. It covers 1 square mile. There's a lot of celebrities who live there. And Clint Eastwood, like you said, was a mayor. They're very artistic community. They really want to be in touch with their community. They want to make sure that the town stays charming. So they had like new rules, like no heels on the beach, no street signs, no ice cream cones. So how do you inform your citizens about all these new laws? You make your town hall meetings transparent. But, you know, ironically, when it came to ensuring that the citizens were well informed, they weren't old school. They really went to the best technology. So in this case, most cities, unlike most cities, this city, Carmel by the Sea, had one person in their IT department. And this same person was the guy that took care of the 911 calls. So you just have to understand how easy and automatic the technology had to be. You know, they needed also to hook into an agenda, a management system that had the documents that were going to be reviewed. In this case, they used Novus Agenda, which is now a Granicus company. And for those of you who know who Granicus is the name of brand of getting the city council meetings and the agendas online.
Publish the minutes, let them see all the presentations, maps or graphics or aerial photos that they're going to be using. And they essentially used one camera, correct? One camera and then images from the secondary source.
No, in fact, in this case, they used 4 PTZ cameras, okay? And there were a switcher, a mixer that they had the ability to flip through. I mean, that one guy was quite busy with, you know, just producing. He didn't have to worry about the streaming because the Novus Agenda and our API, we have an API that goes out for free with the Monarchs if you need them. So what they saw was when you start the Novus Agenda, all you have to do is press a button to say start, and your meeting is streaming to your citizens. So all he had to worry about is producing which view you want to send. So the other cool thing about...
So Frank, I want to interrupt you for a second before you get there, because I want to stress that this integration with these other apps, like the Novus, like the Panopto, this really is, Crestron, is one of the things that really sets the Monarch family of products apart. And if you're trying to do this in a government agency, a school, house of worship, and you have one of these VMSs or control systems, give us a call and we will find out from Matrox if it's supported or not. It probably is, and if it isn't and the opportunity is big enough, I know for a fact you guys have put on other people based on opportunities, not the other way around. So I'm trying to explain that you're listening to your customers and providing them what they want when they need it.
Yeah, good point. And the last point about Carmel was the fact that they actually not only streamed to their citizens live, but they made sure that they recorded the material at a higher quality. That's something that we're able to do with the Monarch HDX. Why? Because now they can actually post a VOD version of the meetings with a lot higher quality.
And Frank, I want to harp on that a little bit because what a lot of people don't realize is there's a lot of other encoders out there, but they record the video in the compressed encoded version. Whereas what the Monarchs do is they let you record the full highest resolution for when you want to make your own videos, edit them, use them, because the whole world isn't always watching on their mobile phone. Sometimes the video's still got to be good old-fashioned HD quality, full screen.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, next we're going to talk about House of Worship, and that's been another area where we've had a lot of success throughout the years with the Monarch, and I know we've also had success. That's where we've really seen a lot of success with that bundle with the Roland little mixer, because they want a little bit of camera operating mixing, but not too much. And here's a parade of worship, you know, who've all used this thing. But the case study we're going to talk about is the St. Peter and St. Paul Coptic Orthodox Church. Tell us what they were doing with the Monarch.
That's a mouthful. No, like everybody, I mean, we love surprises, right? And sometimes your customers surprise you, because this is one of those times. I mean, when we looked at designing the LCS, we really didn't have, you know, like you said earlier, we focused on the education market. But as you'll see in this case study, you know, it can be used in other markets. And this is exactly one of those stories of how the House of Worship market used it. So in this particular church, it's a missionary church. So their whole goal is to basically, you know, dedicate themselves to spreading the word as far and as wide as they can. So believe it or not, before the Monarch LCS, this little church, who, as you can see in the picture, could house maybe 200 people, they actually were streaming before us. They had a PC, they had I/O cards, but however,
a lot of points of failure.
A lot of points of failure, and it wasn't reliable because, you know, they basically shared our vision through pain. You know, they went through pain, realizing that a lot of their broadcasts or webcasts were interrupted because of the fact that it was a PC, because it was a shared computer that was used, you know, during the week for other things. You know, not only are they now able to reliably stream to YouTube via RTMP, they can now send a produced stream. And what you can see behind you, Gary, is an iPad of what is actually being streamed. So
we're going to bring this full screen for you, Frank. There you go.
Yeah, you can see the iPad. You can see the video of the ceremony, and right next to it, it's the scripture. So right above that iPad shot, you see there's monitors throughout that church that is actually going through the scripture. So the Coptic reader, believe it or not, is an iPad app that basically is running through the hymns of scripture. And what they wanted to do is take the mixing functionality of the LCS, do a side-by-side, and send that to YouTube. And it worked out great for them. So the key here was, why did the LCS end up working in House of Worship? Because it's easy. Because volunteers are those that actually use it. And usually from week to week, it's not always the same volunteer. It's reliable. You know,
let's harp on that a little bit, because what I like to call these puppies is appliances. They are dedicated boxes that are very easy to use, a couple of buttons, and a lot of times when we're talking about worship, we are talking about volunteers. And that person for Sunday service might have learned how to work it 10 minutes before Sunday service because the person who regularly does it got sick or was out of town and no one realized it. So one of the real important things about the Monarch whole family is it's really set it and forget it. Once you set it up, it's just ready to go. And I can't stress the importance of that as someone who puts on a show that puts a lot of work into it. Sometimes you just want that easy button.
Exactly, and that's the key. Easy was the key. Reliability for this particular church, and then they went from a whole complicated system to a dedicated device, an appliance that was key. And the last thing that really kicked them over was the fact that they can actually put a picture-in-picture or side-by-side to YouTube. So they didn't have to invest in a lot of gear like you're doing today, that you have a fantastic setup there. But for a church, all you really want to do is you want to give a little bit of production. Side-by-side or picture-in-picture would be good enough. And this one unit not only streams, records, but it does that.
So before we get into solutions for corporate enterprise, I want to stress that all of these workflow case studies we're talking about are available for viewing. Many of them have white papers and videos attached to them. Those are available on the Matrox website and the Videoguys blog. Just search under Monarch and you'll find them all, and there's more coming every day. So just because Frank's going over these quickly, if you want more in-depth information, it's readily available on both the Matrox and the Videoguys website. Okay, let's get into enterprise a little bit, because what really shocked me is these are some big names, Frank. These aren't little companies that you're doing with over here, and we've had a lot of success. And once again, some of these rollouts are just a few Monarchs, but some of them are a lot of Monarchs. So let's talk about the one we're doing with CERN, which is, what does CERN stand for again?
These are the guys that were made famous by Da Vinci Code. Remember that movie where
Yes.
they the God particle? So in the movie at least. But they're using Matrox. CERN, they have 22 members worldwide and are constantly sharing their discoveries. They have over 260 conference rooms / labs where they need to webcast what they're doing to the community.
Oh, and the
So
huge colliders too, right? That's what
yeah,
these guys do? Yeah.
this is like 26-kilometer ring so that they can actually smash particles together.
Yep.
So being the geeks, I mean the scientists that they were, they originally started like the church building their own. A couple of I/O cards, some streaming software, but then they realized, just like the other big names you had on board, why are we going to putz around with building our own encoding unit? Reliability is a problem. Maintenance was a real problem. Let's go on and find what is the most reliable quality encoder out there. We know when it comes to encoders, people have a lot of choices. Why they choose Matrox is because ultimately we've been known, our brand is for quality. And when you're talking about Fortune 500 companies, an international organization like CERN, they go to the go-to device. Reliability has to be there. A dedicated encoder that is designed from the ground up has to be there. So, as you can expect from CERN, before deciding on Matrox, and in this case they used the Monarch HD, they tested many, many encoders, but none of them, the reason why they chose us was that none of them maintained an uninterrupted stream while they were starting and stopping the recordings, because they continuously webcast, okay? Because they have so many things happening, they never stop the broadcast. But what they do is they don't want to have a recording of some dead time between one experiment and the other, so they stop and start the recording. So with Monarch HD, as you know, you could stream and record. None of the encoders out there really did a good job like Matrox, uninterrupting, making sure that the webcast was not interrupted while you start and stop the recording. That was the key for CERN.
So I want to stress this in two ways. Two things are going on here. Number one is you could start and stop the recording without interrupting the streaming, but you could also, through programming, through software, decide when you wanted to record or when you wanted to stream, or whether you wanted to do both at the same time or one or the other, always at the highest quality that's intended for your audience. And this is another example of how the Matrox encoders are just better than a lot of the encoders. They're more robust. And one of our viewers, Jorge, asked if you could use it with the Sling Studio, and you could absolutely take the HDMI output of the Sling Studio and bring it into any Monarch to use its encoding, to use it as one of the sources. Maybe you want to use the Sling encoder to go side by side in an LCS while you have a PowerPoint up and a multi-camera from the Sling. So you could, it's kind of redundant with some of the stuff of the Sling, but I can see how some people would want that dedicated encoder just for what they wanted. And thank you very much. Someone let us know what CERN actually stands for, so it's up on the comment section. So that was cool with that. Now, you're into broadcast as well, and I know that's very exciting. It's really broadcast, number one, is what's behind the new Edge product, but look at all these broadcasts that are using Matrox, and I want to cut to the camera on me again, because I love giving you guys credit for stuff that you do well, and that is you may not realize it, but almost every TV studio, every production facility in the world has some kind of Matrox technology inside of it. Because while we're talking about these products that you can buy today that are for you as an end user, Matrox is an OEM partner, which means their products are integrated, their technology is integrated into stuff that you see every day on TV, the graphics you see, the bumps, the imagery, the scaling, all this stuff. Matrox is a major part of it. So we are talking about a company that has always been broadcast quality, whether their products were aimed at the broadcast arena or not.
Gary, one of the things I wanted to just add, because the question from Jorge really sparked it in my mind, is that the encoder, being a dedicated encoder, could actually attach to those viewers out there that have, maybe a more sophisticated production unit, like TriCaster, and you're really pushing what the TriCaster could do. Sometimes it makes sense to maybe just hang this at the end of one of those things if you need to stream as well. So you dedicate the TriCaster to produce the actual show, and dedicate one of these encoders to stream it out. and maybe even to multiple destinations. We're seeing a lot more people do that.
Frank, that is a great point. You know, the Facebook API limits what you can do at times, so it's a great use. And, you know, let's talk about computer-based systems. Any computer-based system eventually reaches the limit of the RAM, the CPU, and the GPU are in there. So by using a Monarch as your external encoder, it does mean your show. Maybe you're making a vMix or Wirecast, not necessarily a TriCaster. That product, that box that you're using, can now use more of its power for the effects, for the graphics, for the virtual sets and the other stuff you want, while the encoding is now offloaded. And to be able to encode to two places at the same time also saves, you know, processing power from the core mixing device. So great tip there, Frank. Thanks for adding that one. So let's review the family of devices. We have the Monarch at $995, which is HDMI in and out. We have the Monarch HDX, which is a dual device. It's HDMI or SDI in or out, as well as dual encoding and dual streaming. And then we have the LCS, which is dual input, but you can mix between the two. And they've got some really clever presets that let you put the picture-in-picture, not just a side-by-side, but actually lets you scale the pictures. Like I'm here, and then the rest of it could be you. You know, we have this elaborate set, but it's very cool. We've done some shows on the Monarch LCS as well that we've done with Frank, as well as those other use stories and videos on there. So once again, Matrox website has them, Videoguys website has them. It's a very cool tool to be able to use. What you got, Frank?
I think the Monarch HDX, we're in the middle of a promotion now, so maybe you can even get it for cheaper than $19.95.
Oh, very good point. Frank's telling you that there's a promo price available, so give us a call. Sometimes we can publish these things, sometimes we can't, but there is a promo price available. Great call, Frank. Also, I want to stress, if we could bring this up full stream, that we have the flexibility to work with you. So what do we have? We have Matrox sales and workflow specialists available. We'll bring in folks from Matrox. If you give us a call and say, hey, Gary, hey, Adam, I'm working on this whole thing. I manage 12 churches. This is what we want to try to do. We'll bring in the Matrox folks. Even more importantly, we accept purchase orders from colleges, universities, public school systems, military and government agencies, hospitals, medical institutions, and Fortune 500 companies. We can also work with Matrox to get you additional discounts for large deployments, and we can phase in the deployment to align with your budget cycles. As Frank mentioned, on a lot of those major rollouts that we've had that are hundreds of units, it doesn't start with 100. It starts with 10 or 20 and it grows over time. So we can work with you on that. We love kind of those deals. We work with Matrox closely. And don't worry that you think your deal is too complicated, because the guys at Matrox are really smart, and they'll help us put together a solution that'll work for you with your existing VMS video management system. So Frank, I want to thank you for coming on today's show. I think we covered a whole lot. As usual, we went over the 30 minutes, which usually happens when we have a guest who's so knowledgeable and so handsome as Frank Scartozzi.
Thank you very much, Gary. It was a pleasure.
All right, I want to give a little talk about the shows that we have coming up. Next week, we're going to do an NDI update. So we're going to look at what happened about NDI and NAB, what's actually shipping, what's not shipping yet, what's coming. We're going to focus on NDI. Of course, NewTek will be a big part of that, but we're going to cover all our other vendors. After that, the following week, June 18th, we have a special with LiveView. They're coming up with some new bundles with the LiveView Solo and some modems and some pre-purchases of LRT and the and cellular bandwidth, so we're very excited about that. And then we're going to do a show June 25th with Avid's own Kate Ketchum's coming in to talk about the new Media Composer that's shipping the end of this month. That's really powerful and real exciting. So I got to thank Frank a lot. This was a great show. I think we covered a lot of territory. The Monarchs, perfect success stories, education, government, worship, enterprise, and as Frank pointed out, if you just need an encoder to offload some of the pressure that's on your existing video mixing solution. So Frank, thank you very much. Always good to see you. Maybe the Canadians will do better next year. Maybe our Islanders will meet a little bit later, maybe in the finals or the semifinals. We can only hope. But this is Gary from Videoguys. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, we've got live people here who can help you with these products. You can always call us at 800-323-2325. And guys like Adam and Oliver, who are running the show today on the TriCats, can help you with the Monarchs. They can help you with any products you're looking at that you need. And once again, the folks at Matrox will help you as well. So if you're an organization looking to deploy video to scale it out to multiple areas, multiple schools, multiple lecture centers, multiple churches, multiple agencies, multiple boardrooms, what's the best solution, Frank? Matrox. Thank you very much, guys. Peace.
Take care.
Video Guys is available Monday through Friday. Give us a call at 1-800-323-2325. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter to stay connected with all of our updates. And you can like us on Facebook. Keep an eye out for our live videos. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.